All right, everybody. Michael Cohen here with you on the Sports Talk Nation. The Jets take care of the Panthers, but that's really not the story. Let's discuss here on the Sports Talk Nation. All right, everyone. So the Jets take care of the Panthers 15-12 in their second preseason game. They moved to 2-0. One more preseason game to go, thankfully, and then we can begin the regular season here in 2024. But really, as we all know with preseason games, it's all about one thing only. It's about coaches, front offices, taking a look at the depth of their teams. It really isn't too much about seeing what the starters are going to do. And that really leads to my topic today because I had this interesting debate with a couple of people at the barbershop. I had to get my haircut the other day, and people were just talking back and forth about starters getting a chance to play in preseason games. Aaron Rodgers, of course, is certainly someone who came up in this conversation since he has not suited up in a preseason game this year. And, of course, coming off of the Achilles tendon tear last year, the people I spoke with were kind of the position that, hey, look, the Jets should send Aaron Rodgers out there for a preseason game to see where he is and to see where this offense is and to see if this offense truly has gelled over the course of training camp here in 2024. And while that is a legitimate point, I think it's really a great topic to go into this video because that discussion is now taking a broader reach because with one preseason game to go, we still have not seen really any of the starters, let alone Rodgers or anybody else of significance, play significant snaps. Now, of course, there have been significant storylines and players who are fighting for depth positions or players that the Jets need to see play and play well, i.e. Will McDonald, in the preseason. But as far as the big names are concerned, Rodgers, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, the Williams brothers, as I said in my last video, those guys haven't played at all in these preseason games. So with one to go, are the Jets going to send these guys out there with one preseason game left? And by all indications they're not going to do that. Now, just kind of a brief synopsis here about preseason games over the years. I remember there were times in preseason, obviously the days where we had 4 preseason games, where you would see the starters play in the first preseason game maybe a series, and then in the second preseason game maybe a quarter, and then certainly by the third preseason game that was always the dress rehearsal, right? You would see starters play at least a half, sometimes in some cases even get into the third quarter just to get that experience going as far as starting another half is concerned. And then by the fourth preseason game nobody would play, except for guys fighting for roster spots, whether it be on the team or elsewhere in the league. Those days are long gone because coaches and front offices have all wisened up. They all look at the bottom line here, and they see that the risk just isn't worth their investment in these players. They spend millions upon millions of dollars in these guys, and they invest really an entire season, in some cases years, into players. Why would you put them out there in a game that doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot and risk the potential of injury? And of course, if you are a Jet fan, you're probably having flashbacks to, let's just say, Chad Pennington when he got hurt in a preseason game against the Giants, or obviously Mark Sanchez got hurt in a preseason game. So against the Giants. And if you're a Giant fan, you're probably thinking, remember, Jason Sehorn got hurt many, many years ago in a preseason game against the Jets. So injuries do happen in these games, and sometimes they could be very costly. So that's why teams choose not to play their starters nowadays in these games. And, of course, the significance of preseason games has taken a huge hit over the years. It's really outside of the evaluation process, it's almost a pointless exercise. And that's why you're seeing the NFL expand the regular season schedule 17 games. Now they're going to talk about in a few years. The next CBA, potentially 18 games. And that's why the preseason slate is going down from 4 to now 3. Eventually it's going to be 2. And one day, folks, it's going to be 0. Because teams now, as I said, they've wisened up. They now have these scrimmages, these inter-squad scrimmages with other teams that they play in these preseason games during the week. maybe once or twice during the week, let's say like a Tuesday or a Wednesday and a Thursday. And let's just say, for example, here, the Jets and Giants are going to scrimmage each other on a Wednesday this week at Florham Park. It's going to kill the need to play any starters in a preseason game because they're going to get their reps right there in that situation. And that's why I think eventually the NFL is going to do away with preseason, and really that's all you're going to see are these kind of, these kind of scrimmages at team facilities. I think it's great. It's great for the fans because they get a more up-close, personal look at these players, at least for those who end up being on the season ticket list, because sometimes for those who don't end up on the season ticket list, you may not be able to get to one of those, but still, I regress. That's what's going to happen here with preseason. So the long and the short of it here, coming around to this, is Aaron Rodgers going to play in a preseason game against the Giants in next week? My guess is probably not. I mean, let's just take a listen to this video here. Here first, Rodgers, and then Robert Saleh.
You never know. I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like Saleh already ruled me out a few weeks ago, but if I beg him, maybe I'll get to be out there. No different. His role is no different than what Quinnen's was, and that's just be engaged in the game, be involved in the game, and help out your position room.
Have you made a decision on the last preseason game?
I haven't, not yet. We'll talk about it later this week.
And you notice that Saleh just kind of sidesteps the question. I think it was Brian Costello who asked that question. It sounded like Costello. And Saleh just kind of sidesteps the question. We'll talk about it later this week. They have been really mum on whether they're going to play their starters or Aaron Rodgers at all in the preseason. Now, last year, they played him for a 2-series in a preseason game against the Giants. He led a touchdown drive. There was a 3-and-out as well. And I remember watching that preseason game on pins and needles. And look, Jet fans are on pins and needles enough as it is with regards to this quarterback. Do you want to throw him out there in a preseason game and risk that potential of an injury again? That's something that the Jets want to avoid. Obviously, he wants to avoid. Do you really want to risk that going into a preseason game with such a big game coming up after that in 10 days from that game against San Francisco in the opener of the season? You don't want to. Or any player, for that matter, whether it be Garrett Wilson or anybody else. So that's why I don't think they're going to play anybody. And certainly the Giants may not play anybody in that game. But I just find that this is a fascinating topic because every team addresses this very, very differently. Just this week, for example, the Ravens, they didn't play any of their starters. The Eagles didn't play anybody. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, they didn't suit up. The Lions didn't play Jared Goff, but the team they played against, the Kansas City Chiefs, the world champions, they did suit up their starters. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all those guys, they played in the first quarter of that game. And Mahomes had that crazy behind-the-back throw to Kelce in a preseason game just the other day. So he played in the game. C.J. Stroud suited up and played against the Giants. So there's really no reason for him to do so. There's no competition in Houston, but he did play in the game. And then you have teams that are doing it and they're playing their starters or regulars because they need to see something. Now, the Giants are in a situation, let's take them for a case in point, where they need to see what Daniel Jones can do off of that ACL injury and all the questions that surround whether he can be their starter moving forward. We had a whole offseason with the Giants where they were considering drafting a quarterback. Then they signed Drew Lock, and Lock at times has looked pretty good in camp, and there's been talk about a quarterback controversy. And then you have Tommy DeVito sitting there. That's why they threw Daniel Jones out there, and he did not look good against Houston through 2 picks. What does that mean now moving forward for him? Are the Giants going to throw Daniel Jones out there in the preseason finale against the Jets? Remains to be seen, but my guess is Brian Daboll and company are probably not going to do that. Even the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers are another team out there that have to throw their starters out there in a preseason game. They threw Justin Fields and Russ Wilson and nobody else as far as the quarterback position is concerned. And they're trying to figure out which one of those two guys is going to be the starter. So it's all about what the team need is. If the Jets feel they're getting, this is my assumption here, the Robert Saleh, his coaching staff feel they're getting everything they need to see out of the starters in training camp and in these scrimmages. They had scrimmages against Washington, against Carolina. These are not the preseason games. These are the weekday scrimmages, and now they're going to have one against the Giants before the preseason game next weekend. They may feel there's no need to make that risk any further than it already is. And that's why I don't think we're going to see Aaron Rodgers play in this game against the Giants. Now, would it be nice? Would it be nice for the fans to, let's say, pay tickets as part of their season ticket packages, or fans who get tickets on StubHub or Ticketmaster who go to the game who want to see something? Yeah, sure. Would it be nice to see a little bit of Aaron Rodgers play and the starters play, just to see the cobwebs come off here so we can get a look in game action before the regular season? Absolutely. There is a plus to playing, guys, because you want to be able to see how this looks before the regular season begins, what your offense and defense is going to look like with your starters on the field. So there's a positive to playing the starters other than just the overwhelming negative, the potential of injury. So we've come a very long way. It's very different than it was 15, 20 years ago, where starters would no question about it play in preseason games. And as is with this preseason game between the Jets and the Panthers, which apparently was a field goal fest, I only watched a little bit of that game. I'll be completely honest. I didn't stick around for that game because it was just bad football to watch with third and fourth stringers going at it. But the most important keys to that were the fact that there are a couple of guys the Jets are evaluating. Obviously, Olaf Fasanu, the rookie they drafted out of Penn State, playing right tackle, looked pretty good at right tackle. Pretty good. Looked pretty good at left tackle last week against Washington. Looked pretty good at right tackle against Carolina. That's an important player to pay attention to because he's going to be backing up Tyron Smith and maybe even Morgan Moses on the other side. How's he going to look in that situation when his number gets called potentially during the course of the year? Very important situation for him. And then, of course, there's this whole Hassan Reddick thing that's been hovering over the Jets really all season and now into training camp. He wants to get traded. He's not happy with the fact the Jets haven't bent his way on the contract negotiation. And as I've been harping on since the first preseason video I did last week, and really since June when this whole story broke out that he was holding out of minicamp beforehand, the Jets have to see what they have as far as depth is concerned at the defensive tackle position and defensive end position. And Will McDonald, after kind of a nondescript week last week against Washington in the game action, looked really good in game action last night against Carolina with the spin move and the sack of the quarterback for Carolina. I think it was Palmer was the third-string quarterback playing for Carolina that last night. So he looked good. And the Jets have shown that they have depth at that position. They have depth, as we know, in the secondary with Qantas Stiggers and Jarek Bernard Converse. They have a lot of good depth there, and that's what preseason is all about now. It's about checking out your depth and seeing who can come in at the moment's notice. If you do, God forbid, have an injury of a starting player during the course of the year or whatever happens, someone checks out, someone gets penalized, you have to make a move on a third down or a second down, depending on personnel. Can we check this player in, and can he suit up and play well? And that's what preseason now, at this point, is really all about in preseason games. So I understand why people are upset at the idea that, man, we really want to see what we got here with this quarterback, and I can certainly make a case why Aaron Rodgers and the starting offense should play, because let's be honest, outside of the 4 plays we saw last year in the regular season, we only had 2 series in a preseason game last year between the Jets and the Giants to see what that offense looked like. It would be kind of nice to see what it looks like now. You got Mike Williams in there. You're going to have a healthy Breece Hall. You got everyone's at this moment is healthy. A healthy Aaron Rodgers. You got the new offensive line: Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, Joe Tippmann at center. And I know there's been issues with the quarterback center exchange. You like to see in a game situation. You really would like to see in a game situation how that would look like. What that would look like. I certainly understand where that argument comes from, and I can certainly understand why some of the fans may be kind of annoyed, saying, can we see something? When are we going to see something before the season starts? I get it. I totally get it. But right now, if I had to put dollars on this one in a preseason game, my guess is chances are we're not going to see the starters play at all in the preseason finale between the Jets and the Giants. And that also includes the Giants. Potentially, and I know Drew Lock got hurt. He's been hurt this week for the Giants. I would imagine that the Giants are going to open the season with Daniel Jones as their quarterback. They're paying him that much money. In spite of the turnovers yesterday, he is going to be their starting quarterback, whether they like it or not. Now, what happens after that? After opening day is anyone's guess. Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, who the heck knows what could happen? I was one of those guys could slide in under center for the Giants later in the year, but I don't think we're going to see a big showcase out of Daniel Jones or Devin Singletary or Malik Nabers in that preseason finale for the Giants against the Jets. It's all about that scrimmage on Wednesday at Florham Park, and that's pretty much all you're going to get. So, folks, leave your thoughts below. What do you think about the situation as far as this debate that I know a lot of people are having online? I know a lot of fans, even basically at the water cooler, even at a barbershop that I was at the other day, talking about should starters play in these preseason games, and should the Jets go out there and play Aaron Rodgers and the starting offense in the preseason finale? Leave your thoughts below, like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.